listening to a Super Bowl NFL Primetime. It's the music, it's the game, and my goodness, how could you walk away from what a game looked like? One that should have been or could have been walked away. Chris Berman, Tom Jackson, Steve Young, as the 49ers and the Ravens put something together that, well, there's always a curveball in there. We had quite a few, Tom.
Well, we had a curveball. I hesitate to call it a classic. Great win for the Baltimore Ravens, and the 49ers will be second-guessing themselves the entire offseason about the way this game was played.
Well, look, the resiliency of the 49ers looking flat on their back. Obviously, the delay was a huge advantage, but you could see the explosiveness that they had. They're going to be very regretful, but Joe Flacco threw this team to this championship. When early he threw it to take the lead, and late he threw it to go finish the game and tilt the field back when everything seemed lost.
And Anquan Bolden was part of that dynamic duo.
Well, a lot of guys
made every catch, though. Anquan, every catch that had to be made. Critical situations, he was the guy.
And even though it's a game in which there were, in the end, 65 points scored, what put it away at the end, even though it's hardly the story of the Ravens and how they hung on, was a defensive stand at the 5-yard line in Ray's last stand.
Well, as this defense has aged, there's one thing that they've held on to, and you mentioned a little bit ago.
Red zone defense.
Red zone defense. They have pride, right? 20-20, we're not that great. But inside the 20, you're kicking field goals, or we're going to turn the football over.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why would we talk about it when we could show people in case they missed a few things? It was not going to be easy at the Big Easy for either the 49ers to go 6 for 6 or the Ravens to go 2 for 2 in the Super Bowl. The brothers, John and Jim Harbaugh, we may never see this again until next year when these teams get back. And so, early on, opening drive for the Ravens. Joe Flacco to Torrey Smith. 20 yards, and that's what he can do, go deep and go right. So 3rd and 4 in the drive. Flacco will float it, and Anquan Bolden behind 4 Niners catches a 13-yard touchdown, 7-0.
3rd down conversions for touchdowns. Absolutely, they tested the middle of the field to play before. They go back to it. Anquan Bolden, to your point, Tommy, made all the big catches.
So young Colin Kaepernick making only his 10th start. Kaepernick to Michael Crabtree, a gain of 19. And so with the game beyond here, very early on, 2nd and 3rd, Frank Gore makes a move. It's a 5-yard run for a 1st down as Ray Lewis missed one.
Well, we didn't hear a lot from Ray Lewis early on in this football game and maybe through the 3rd quarter, but it did make some plays late.
Now Colin Kaepernick to Vernon Davis, and both he and Ed Reed looked like they were hurt on the play. Davis actually came out. Couple plays later, 2nd and goal. Kaepernick flush out of the pocket, and the ball off the hands of Crabtree. He was open, but no.
I think that Colin was throwing this to Randy Moss.
Randy Moss was open at the back of the end zone.
And then the big play, Paul Kruger. Big plays, Ravens. This was one of them, a sack. San Francisco looked like they were rolling. They settled for an Akers field goal. Who was, well, everyone was on edge when he kicked it, but it was good, 7-3. Then Joe Flacco, he moved pretty well, Steve.
He moved and threw the ball from all over the field. He was backing up earlier. Now he's running the sidelines, making a great throw. Joe Flacco, well, we're talking about Colin Kaepernick this whole week is the only guy that can move around. Joe Flacco moved all over the field to throw that football.
3rd and 13, a few plays later, and now Ray McDonald has a sack. E-I-E-I-O, it's a loss of 5. The 1st quarter is over, and it's 7-3. So now here's San Francisco. Colin Kaepernick to Vernon Davis. It's 29 yards. 1st down, Niners. LaMichael James makes a move. He broke 1, 2, 3, but maybe shouldn't have broken a 4th tackle because the ball came out and Arthur Jones recovers it.
You know, we talked about big stages, young players, rookies. Here's a guy that's been a great spark plug for this football team, but on the big stage, the young players are the ones that turn the football over. Colin Kaepernick will in just a minute.
So now Flacco to Ed Dixon. And boy, they threw the ball in traffic, but the Niners had trouble covering, and the Ravens made many a big catch, and that was a face mask added on by Dante Whitner. And then, there it is. That was Dixon first. This is the Dixon play.
And that's the face mask right there that cost him half the distance.
And there it is to Pitta for the touchdown. It's 14-3.
I thought that the lack of contact down in the red zone where you allow people to run to spots, Anquan Bolden did it, Pitta did it there without being touched by the defense. You make things easy for the quarterback.
At this point, Colin Kaepernick looked like a gentleman making his 10th start at QB. The ball sailed. Ed Reed was playing center field, and the veteran Reed, in his hometown and home state, Louisiana, returns it to the 38-yard line, and then even both teams got into it. There were dual personal fouls. The coaches got on the field. That's enough, fellas.
I thought it was kind of funny because it just reminded me of the Harbaugh boys in their bedroom, right? It's very, I mean, I don't think there was much harm in it. But here's the big, I mean, Colin Kaepernick early did start to feel, I mean, you sense that he was rattled. It was a 10th game. You got to say, at some point that's got to show up, and obviously he turns the corner here shortly.
Ed Reed's 9th pick postseason, tied for the postseason record. Flacco short to Ray Rice, 7 yards and a first down. Boy, Ray Rice did not mind being the workhorse running and receiving. 3rd and 9, Flacco overthrows to Torrey Smith, and the Ravens then line up for a field goal, but they're going to make it a 14-point game at 17-3. Uh-oh, it's a fake, and Justin Tucker, the rookie's going to run and not quite get it. Okay, a head-scratching gamble.
I think I think John was thinking it's a knifing blow,
yes.
You know, just something that's going to put this team on their back. A young quarterback looking like he was starting to get flustered. Let's put it, not put it away, but put it some distance. A big risk, no question.
So the Ravens turn it over on downs, but they force a 3-and-out, and Flacco to Jacoby Jones. And not only does he make the catch, this will not go as a turnover in the books, but 2 missed tackles and a touchdown of 56 yards.
When you realize that a team really profits off the deep ball the way they do, and you watch this little double move right there, again, I believe that you have to make contact at the line of scrimmage. Help has to be where it's supposed to be. This blow right here, I thought this was the kill shot.
I really did. I thought we've seen the 49er defense back end of it. The safeties and corners get exposed here towards the last month and a half. And certainly Joe Flacco blew that open.
21-3. So Kaepernick to Delaney Walker now with under 2 minutes to go. They want to get something. Paul Kruger again comes up big here as they really corralled Kaepernick's running lane, didn't they?
And then you get a sense of what, you know, not only the inexperience, but just this indecision. You can see Collins should have turned up and made this first down. As a young kid, put your head in, you know where the yardage markers is. And I think he might have gotten lost on that, and that cost them a first down.
But they get a field goal and maybe something on the board to get started in the second half, although the Ravens are going to get the ball. After a half an hour halftime show with Beyonce and company, Jim Harbaugh figures let's pin him deep and see if we can get the defense going. But it was anything but. It was a good kick by Akers, but 8 yard deep. The Pro Bowl return man, Jacoby Jones. And he could go all the way. The longest scoring play in Super Bowl history, of course. 108 yards. It's over. It's 28-3.
Outstanding blocking by the Ravens. Suspect coverage by the 49ers. You get a great return man like Jacoby Jones. This is the result. And I thought this might be the kill shot by the Ravens.
And Jones doing the Ray Lewis and Jim Harbaugh can't believe they're down 28-6. My goodness, we came all the way for that. And then, when the Niners had the ball at 3rd and 13, the power went out for a half an hour. Are you kidding me? At the Super Bowl?
The word that I heard was that Beyonce used so much energy in the halftime, heated up all the transformers that it blew at second half. The rest of the city sounded like it was fine. So they put the Super Bowl venue on an island electrically. That's what I understand. And so for some reason, the redundant system, I have no explanation for it. But you got to believe that everybody loses in this scenario. The teams, the balance of competition, the city, the league, CBS, it's a tough blow for everybody.
Team that lost the most at the moment that this happened was the Baltimore Ravens. That team was on a roll. The 49ers
were just sacked Colin Kaepernick.
Absolutely.
They were flat on their back.
Absolutely.
And it really took the air out of the game. So that momentum that you had, it literally just got taken away.
So they did resume. And of course they got to stop. But then here come the 49ers. Second drive after delay. Niners got stopped. They punted, but they get the ball back. Colin Kaepernick, he ran it. He threw it. That's Vernon Davis down to the 31. But they're down 28-6. They need a miracle. Kaepernick, Crabtree, breaks a couple of tackles. Okay, in the 7th quarter, Jim's team scores on John's team a touchdown. And
this was the 49ers know how explosive they are. They've shown it last week. 2 weeks ago, they showed it against Green Bay. They sensed it here, and then they really felt it when they had to shake the punt here in the next play.
So now here's the punt by Sam Cook. And watch Teddy Ginn. He's dangerous. And the Niners are in business all of a sudden, just like that. We got 6 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. There is plenty of time. And Kaepernick gets it to Frank Gore. And bang, we have ourselves a one-score game. It's 28-20.
Tremendous ingenuity in some of this play calling, and that's when you got a sense that even Greg Roman, offensive coordinator for the 49ers, started to relax and just said, let me open up my playbook, and it really did show.
Now to Ray Rice, and it's the first Ravens turnover. Terrell Brown forces it and comes up with it for the Niners, and so all of a sudden this game is on its ear.
Great job, hand on ball. You saw it come out. Defender realized it was out, turn around. Great play to get it back.
So David Akers, 39-yard field goal is no good after the Ravens make a stand, whatever, running into the kicker.
You know what? You hope that the angle of the head referee was in front of him so he could not tell the fact that he literally never got touched.
Well, they got a huge break because the re-kick was good. A 34-yard field goal, it's 28-23. Flacco to Bolden on 3rd and 3 with the game all of a sudden going away big time. Joe Flacco steps up again, fellas.
And he started to turn. This was where the game seemed like it was going to get run over by the 49ers. And big runs and big throws. I think the Ravens showed tremendous resiliency to come back.
That's Bernard Pierce, who on 3rd and 1 had a huge bounce out for 8 yards. Now in the 4th quarter, Ray Rice up the middle from the 1 is stuffed for no gain. So 3rd and goal with the Ravens trying to knock back up to a 2-score game. The rush is on. Flacco does a good job getting out of there, but he's hit out of bounds, by the way. There was no call. Could have been.
Yeah, you know there could have been a call. There was a few calls during the course of this game that weren't made. You know, I like the fact that the officials, for the most part, let them play this football game.
But the big news is the Niners held them to a field goal, and it's still one score, 31-23. Kaepernick to Randy Moss, looking for his first Super Bowl ring and perhaps his final game. First down, Niners. Now, this goes so fast, fellas. Here goes Frank Gore. And that's a 21-yard pickup, and look at him find the space outside. And now the youth of the Niners against the experience, if you will, of the Ravens really shining through.
And you thought the age of the Ravens would show up here to their detriment, and that the young 49ers would take control, and they did, and that's why the resilience of the team really showed in the long
And that looks like Kaepernick, Steve, in the Green Bay game. He was in. This drive happened before he even turned around.
Colin Kaepernick felt the open rusher and immediately responded the other direction, and the defense just can't respond back.
So now the Niners go for 2. They do not get it. You understood it.
But it looked like there was a number of miscommunications. A lot of balls were snapped at going to 0. A lot of times Colin looked at the other receivers. That's unlike what I've seen the last few weeks.
So with the lead, it's 31-29, but now Navarro, Bowman, and the Niners defense say if we can get a stop, we're about to win. So on 3rd and 9, Flacco to Torrey Smith with the good coverage. It's incomplete, but pass interference, Chris Culliver.
Another call where, to my eye, it looks like you wish you would have let him play.
So Ravens keep the drive going. And Quan Bolden, boy, it seems like the better the coverage, the more he wants the ball, right?
And Joe Flacco trusts him so much. When that ball, to me, when that ball comes out of Joe's hand, Joe's mind's got to say, hey, it's 50-50. When I call Bolden, it's 100-0, right?
That's correct.
John Harbaugh says, you know what? That's Ravens football. And so is this. Ray Rice, 12 yards, running left, and that's another Raven first down. Flacco, incomplete, but a flag on the play. The Niners, Jim Harbaugh going nuts, but the flag went right away. They called it offside.
Well, I thought that one was actually an obvious offside.
That was very obvious.
Like a couple of people.
He was mad at his own players there, I think.
Flacco to Dennis Pitta. He can't hang on. A good throw, but the sure-handed tight end in coverage didn't do it. There's Whitner, 4th down Ravens, and the young kicker, bang. The ball just sounds loud. It's like a Dustin Johnson drive off of his foot. He splits the upright, 34-29, but once upon a time, the Niners began a drive with just over 4 minutes to go to begin their quest for greatness.
It felt like it was happening again.
You know what I'm talking about, the catch game. So it was 4:19, this drive started. Kaepernick running. Kaepernick throwing. Vernon Davis can't quite lay out to get it. So now 2nd and 10 with under 3.5 to go. Plenty of time, Kaepernick here. The zing to Michael Crabtree. Ray Lewis down the field helps on the stop. Niner first down, 24-yard pickup. Frank Gore bouncing left. Man, there's no one. Ed Reed can't even get him. Finally knocked out by Ellerby, 33 yards. First down Niners and way in the red zone. 2 minutes to go, 2nd and 5. Kaepernick, time to Crabtree. He's covered, incomplete.
This whole series felt like, there's the timeout that had to be used. This whole series felt like it didn't use the full measure of what the 49ers could be.
So that's now 3rd down, and Crabtree was broken up by Jimmy Smith there. He was going to be shy of the end zone anyway. So now, 4th and goal. Could the Ravens make a stand? The loft. And it's just nowhere near Crabtree. Jim Harbaugh wants holding, but the Ravens in the end make a defensive stand.
I mean, it doesn't even look like the two of them are running the same thing.
Well, you know, I can't stand the fade of the end zone for the game when you've got such a huge playbook and so many dynamic players. It just, I mean, it takes 10 guys off of the field. So, I mean, look, you got to make the call. It didn't work, and now you got to just second guess it, I guess.
So now the Ravens, can they run it out? Not quite. The final timeout is used after a handoff to Rice with just seconds left. 11 seconds. Sam Cook takes some time.
Oh, there's
takes some time. Takes some time. Takes some time to get out. So now there's a safety. We go to 34-31 with 4 seconds left. The game is going to end on a punt-off, if you will, and a Ted Ginn miracle, hopefully for the Niners. Would it be a Ginn fizz? That's asking a lot. And there it is, right in front of the coach's box at midfield. Joe Flacco. Ravens, a great moment between the brothers, John and Jim. But the Baltimore Ravens open up a 22-point lead. And the Ravens withstand the Niners' onslaught. The Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis's final game. Joe Flacco has won another postseason playoff game. He's 9-4. The trophy, the Lombardi Trophy, Hall of Famer Richard Dent doing the presenting. And the Ravens, they go to Denver as a 9-point underdog. They win. O.J. Brigance, beautiful scene. They go to New England as a 9.5-point underdog. They win. And they come to the Super Bowl as an underdog of 4 points against the 49ers, and they win. Emotion, togetherness, and a story that'll be told for a long time is told in purple. Baltimore 34, San Francisco 31. So the lights go out and we have a 22-point game, and you figure, okay, that's great. Start writing our notes, make a couple of comments. Some of the great games aren't classics, if that makes sense. Right, Tom?
Right, exactly. I mean, you look at this game, and it had its spots of sloppiness. It had its spots of greatness. I think if you look at the Ravens, it was 60 minutes of football and pretty good football played by most of the team. Great football played by Joe Flacco.
No question.
And when you look in microcosm at the San Francisco 49ers, the first play of the game is a 20-yard game,
completion, yes.
But you aren't lined up correctly, so it's negated, and you are backed up. The last drive of the game, when you need these critical timeouts, you have to use one up so that at the end of the game, you have no chance really to win the football game other than a punt return. In between, a lot of craziness happened, including about a half hour of darkness at the Super Bowl. But, you know, give the Ravens credit for playing an outstanding game, especially quarterback Joe Flacco offensively.
Well, we'll talk about the 49ers in a minute, but I think we got to talk about the champs. Joe Flacco, I thought about this all year long. The offense needs to take the front page. This has been a defensively dominated team for a long time. Now that Ray Lewis is going to retire, Joe Flacco has stepped into the front, and he's had an up-and-down season, but this run in the playoffs, I recognize that the defense did their part.
Yes.
But Joe Flacco distinguished himself with his great offensive weapons, and I think he stepped into this front page for good now.
Yes.
And for the good of this team for a long time in the future. Wins will come on both sides of the football. I think this team will be more balanced, and I think it's good for this. I think Steve Bisciotti, the owner's been looking for this to happen for a long time. He thought he's had the talent to do it for a while, but it just couldn't get out of the shadow. And it just seemed like this year, and this game will be the signature game for Joe and for this offense, and I think good for the Ravens in the long run, obviously.
The Ravens, Joe Flacco in the playoffs, in the 4 wins. 11 touchdown passes, 3 tonight. No interceptions. Hello. And many of his biggest throws weren't necessarily the TDs. They were on 3rd and 8s. They were into traffic. They were thrown with authority, and they were thrown with confidence. They can run the up-tempo. They can run the slower down. And in the end, the Ravens had a ton early and enough late to win their second Lombardi Trophy. Man, this was fun. When we return, we'll hear from Ray Lewis. We'll hear from Joe Flacco. That's about as much excitement as you're going to get out of Joe. Now, let's put this up. We put this up this morning, and we all found it interesting. And we should mention that Joe Flacco, with 11 touchdown passes this postseason and no interceptions, has tied, and Joe capped that off Montana on this very field against Denver, 55-10, Tom. And so Joe Flacco and Joe Montana are the ones who had 11 touchdowns and no picks in a single postseason. I mean, it's almost eerie that it is also here.
And he went to Denver. He went to New England.
I know.
You know, it wasn't like, I mean, we didn't do it at home, you know?
And you know, I would never compare the two. Obviously, you wouldn't. But Joe Flacco's nickname is Joe Cool, maybe the second. They're both Joe Cool, I mean, in a totally different way. The throws he had to make, he counted on making them. That's my point. They played more up-tempo. They slowed it down at times. When the moment got big, he got bigger. Agree? When the Niners got close, they kept drive to it. There was one that he wanted back when they couldn't punch it in from the 1. But in the end,
I don't want to take any, I mean, sitting on this field, it reminds me of Eli Manning against the New England Patriots, this explosive team like the 49ers. And that Eli would make all of those throws. He's such a calm demeanor, unnervingly mellow. He created so many great comebacks. And this is, in some ways, even though they never lost the lead, it was a comeback because of the incredible change in momentum. And you see all the places that Joe threw from today. On the run, falling back, moving up in the pocket on one leg. I mean, for a guy that they say doesn't move around very well, he was as dynamic as you've seen him or a pocket passer in a long time. I got to tell you, Joe Flacco, I learned more about Joe Flacco in the second half than I did in the first half. And they'd only scored 6 points in the second half, but how he tilted the field back with an incredible shift in momentum.
He seems like the perfect quarterback for his football team. Everybody else on that team is so emotional, so outwardly emotional. And he seems to be that perfect balance for that football team. And again, you talk about a guy, he did it to Denver, that's stepping up through the pocket, the Rocky Mountain Rainbow. I mean, he's not a great runner, but he's becoming great at buying time and extending plays so that his team has a chance to make these 17, 20, 25-yard, 80-yard plays downfield, and that's going to make him as dynamic as anybody in the game.
And Boomer, one thing I would add about Joe, Ray Lewis, I know Ray is magnanimous, right? Like the guy said, he wanted to share it, but he takes all of the air, not on purpose. It's just the nature of who he is. And Joe, at the quarterback, could be unnerved by that. He could not show, I don't know how to handle that. I'm the quarterback, I want to dominate. And he is mature enough to handle that big aspect of this team. This team could get torn apart by one big personality. And it's not, it's actually healed by that. I really appreciate Joe Flacco so much more today than I ever have.
Let me share some of the air that you talk about with Ray Lewis, but guys that don't look for it. Ed Reed, everybody assumes he played on the Super Bowl team in 2000. Of course, he did not.
He did not.
Ed Reed, one of the greats to play the position, now in the record books with 9 picks. Haloti Ngata ended up being hurt. We thought that might even cost them the game. They were having trouble running in the middle until he went out. Terrell Suggs, who got hurt in the offseason, I'm going to be back. Came back earlier than planned. He wasn't the defensive player of the year, but every week he got better. Matt Burke, probably at the end of the run of a wonderful career that began in 1998, that began with the Vikings, finally has a Super Bowl ring. A young man from Harvard who, 6-time Pro Bowler. There are others. There's Bryant McKinney, who rededicated himself, was able to move the left tackle, and they made about 3 shifts on the offensive line, which played a big role. So the names of the veterans, I don't mean to eliminate the youngsters, but the names of the veterans are not only Ray Lewis, and boy, did they all saddle up for a ride together. And you heard Coach Harbaugh refer to it, and we thought we were getting better when we were losing. It was interesting. The 49ers, they're only getting better. Almost to the Super Bowl a year ago. Almost a comeback for the ages in this Super Bowl. What's next for them? Hey, they almost had this one. We'll be back. A huge part of it, Steve. Such unbelievable history. Almost had, needless to say, a historic Super Bowl comeback, but not quite. They'll wonder why in all the games, the Packer game not so much, but in the other two, why there was such a big hole. They will look back and say, so once it's not one game, it's kind of all of them. What is this flaw that gives us in such a big hole that even this time they couldn't get out of?
Well, I think in the past, this defense for the 49ers has been dominant. And it just hasn't dominated. I think when Justin Smith got hurt, Aldon Smith kind of not disappeared, but he didn't get the sacks he thought. And I don't think the linebackers were protected as much because of that. And it seemed to be exposed the secondary. And each time, I mean, each game, it seemed like that's what happened early. And deep offenses, opposing offenses really took advantage of it. And they weren't used to that. The 49ers are used to getting the ball back. They're used to be, this is a #1 defense, #2 defense in the league. And it just towards the end of the year, it slipped. And because of that, they got in holes. You saw Colin Kaepernick for the first time I've seen him, other than in Seattle. He fell, I just see him, he looked like he played in his 10th game, which is, I mean, come on, it is only his 10th game. And he was phenomenal after that. But he just got a sense that every play took to the last second to get off. Every, he kept faking to nobody, you know what I mean? It was like, I think there was a lot of issues early, and then phenomenal. You can see what this team could be if they didn't put themselves in a hole.
They look like a young, inexperienced football team at this level in this game. I thought that Colin was rattled, especially in the first half of this football game. And very quickly, we talked about it this morning. Everybody says, I'm going to treat it just like another game. And yet, when you get in it and you kick it off and you are the guy with everybody depending on you to do things, and you are in that 10th game, even though you ran this at Nevada, it just doesn't work the way you thought it was going to work.
Most of these Niners are young. I know Randy Moss and a David Aker, some others are not young, but we saw that they wouldn't take no for an answer, and they got around farther this time. This will sit in their crowd. We now know how they respond. We know they mean business. They'll be back. So will we. 34-31 Baltimore. Super Bowl 47 more. Of the media guide for the Ravens put out before the start of the season says team. Hello, they got it right. Congratulations to them, 34-31.
And again, a team that was hot at the end in the wild card round ran the table. I mean, it just didn't happen 10, 15 years ago. Now we're seeing it all the time.
What a last ride for Ray Lewis. This is one of the greatest things ever.
You know, this football thing, it's pretty good. Thanks for watching Primetime.